Okay, let's unpack the two different faces and variations of victim consciousness. Firstly, caveat: victim consciousness. It's a concept. It's a concept that I'm using to describe the part of ourself. It even turns into a persona, almost like a role or a character we play that we get stuck in and identify with, that at some point has identified and felt that choice was taken away or not available to them. And as a response and a protective mechanism, it plays out in two different ways. Usually we tend to, the victim consciousness tends to be spoken about as this terrible thing, that it's almost like this ugly thing, and it can be very parasitic. Like, we can drain ourselves and drain others if we're engaged with and identified in this victim consciousness, especially when we don't know it, and we often don't. But what I want to say is that at some point in our lives, every single one of us will need to, actually we don't have to do anything, but it's actually something that none of us, there's no get out of jail free card for any human being. I actually think it's an enormous part of our human evolution, our human experience, to meet with, be with, embrace and integrate this part of ourselves, this victim consciousness. So let me talk about the two different faces. One out of the two of them shows up as this over hyper independent of, I don't need any help, won't receive help, or struggles to receive help, struggles to ask for help, believes it weak to ask for help at some level, whether or not they would admit it to themselves or out loud. That's one. So it's that hyper independence, I don't need help. And the other one is, I need all the help I can get. There's like this underlying sense of panic, of this, it's almost like life's hard, things are done to them, like their perception is filtered through this, like very hard, like things are hard, I don't have it's just how it is for me, and you wouldn't understand, and I can't get it, I can't do anything about this. It's like a complete helplessness in the extreme case, and it can come out in like anywhere of a sliding scale. And I'm not saying one person does it like this and the other like this, because we can move all the way up and down that scale as an individual at any one time, but we tend to sit in one or the other. So you're probably already thinking, I've seen myself do that. I've seen myself do that too, but you probably are more familiar with one or the other. So if we look at the one where there's that hyper independence, which, anyone who knows me would recognize that plays out, or has definitely played out, and I've had to work with for a long time, at least like 10 years of my own life, of I don't need any help, and having to move into that discomfort of like receiving and asking for help, which I love help now. I love it, especially being pregnant. It's like, this is the best. And so that part of us is still afraid or driven by fear, but the fear of feeling helpless. Okay, so is what's under that. I don't want to feel helpless, and I don't want to need help, because at some point at X, Y, and Z, needing help or asking for help, or like when there was no help, I just had to do it. And so it's like, it's a painful kind of programmed as painful back here. So it's pushed aside, the sense of helplessness. So there's this front that holds that back there, that is, I'm not going to ask for help, find it uncomfortable to receive help, and in a sense has judgment on receiving or asking for help at all. And imagine a lifetime of that, of how lonely and draining that is. And if we really look underneath, we can see the little victim play out of like, people are going to let me down, or I don't have any other choice because people are going to let me down. Like, it's still under there. It's just it's just wearing a different dress. It's just wearing a different set of clothes to the other one. There's still that fear. There's still that sense of, I don't have a choice. This is how it has to be. Okay? So the other side of that, and I'm exaggerating here to make a point, that one that will take any help it can get and plays the helplessness card, and will like lean on others too much and lean on others in an unhealthy way. And often it needs a counterparty that has the part of them that feels like they need to help others and need to help and fix and save others, it can tend to trigger that in other people, and you have this like codependent, like really unhealthy codependent relationship unfold. The other one has one too. It shows up differently. I can talk about that, but this one's really, really common and very obvious, where this person just keeps they just keep playing this victim card and not helping themselves, and they can go through their life getting teachers and investing in themselves and having so many supportive friends, but they will still end up back. They might have these moments of like self-power, but they will, because they believe that they are helpless and that they don't have a choice, and that comes from somewhere deeply ingrained, they actually are very comfortable in that suffering. They're very comfortable in that helplessness, because they would, to be able to own that that's actually playing out and that's what's happening. Not only do, when we meet this part of ourselves, or we perhaps invite another to see it, do they tend to get incredibly defensive. They tend to create stories in their head that protect them from having to take any ownership, and often make someone who won't feed that part of them the enemy. And they create this enemy in this space between them, in a sense, if that makes sense. And then only turn towards and stick to people who will enable that, and keep, it goes from empathy and compassion to this enabling of always they're always there to save and fix, and they know those people who will always be there and keep that going. And so in the end, you can see that over here they feel like they don't have a choice, it's just this way, so I'm going to be hard and hyper independent and not ask for help and struggle to receive and tell myself, I even say I find it hard to ask for help, or I don't need any help, I can do it myself anyway. Still victim consciousness. This one, very obvious victim consciousness of that helplessness. And either way, when we're identified with either of these beliefs or these feelings, we just continue to enable this fear to go. So if you want to work with dissolving that, integrating that, then both have to be humbled in owning that they're making this choice to stay in that belief, to keep feeding that fear and keep running away from it. Ultimately, we have to take radical responsibility for our life, especially if we play the victim consciousness that's feeding off others, and understand that we are where we are because we've chosen it to be this way, and that in the end, we're the ones who have to grow our own backbone and choose to help ourselves. And that's the only way we can ask, we can get support, but we have to choose to do it ourselves. And that is when things change. And the side that's hyper-independent, soften, choose to trust, choose to change the idea about what it is, and open to the truth of what you already know deep down, which is to ask for help is to be open to receiving, which is to create the energetic flow in life. Either way, at some point in our lives, we have to get sick to death of our own shit around our victim consciousness and decide to meet ourselves deeply and heal this aspect.